Hi, I'm Cautex, and let's talk about what, so far, the top warriors in the world in both Liquid and Echo are doing during the race to World First. At the time of recording this, the race is not over, so I'm only going to be talking about what we saw during the first week of the race. So far, we have actually seen warriors use all 4 covenants in this race. We've seen both specs be used, and we've seen a lot of different legendaries being used. There is a lot that these warriors have been doing to try to maximize their damage. So, let's get into it. On Vigilant Guardian, Liquid ran 4 warriors, all of them were arms, all of them used the Enduring Blow legendary, and all of them soulbound with Khura'in. I think that the logic that they used for making this decision was that they wanted to have the execute damage provided by being arms, but they also wanted to have good AoE damage on the adds, which is what Khura'in is really good for. Echo took a slightly different approach and basically just split off their warriors. They ran 3, 2 of them were Fury, 1 of them was arms. For the Fury warriors, 1 of them was Night Fae and soulbound with Khura'in, the other was Kyrian and soulbound with Mykonikos. Both of these Fury warriors ran the Signet of Tormented Kings legendary. They also ran an Arms warrior who was Night Fae and soulbound with Dreamweaver. That Arms warrior was, of course, using the Enduring Blow legendary. I think that their logic was that rather than using an all-rounder sort of setup, let's have some warriors who are spec'd into purely AoE damage, which would definitely be the Fury warriors, and then have one warrior who is purely spec'd into single target damage, which would be the Dreamweaver Arms warrior. On Skolex, Liquid ran a total of 5 warriors. 2 of them were Fury, 3 of them were arms. The Fury warriors were both running Elysian Might, and they were soulbound with Clea. The 3 arms warriors were all Night Fae, but 2 of them were Dreamweaver, and 1 of them was Naya. All of the arms warriors were, again, running Enduring Blow, because that's pretty much just the de facto legendary for arms. I think that the call that Liquid made here was just play whatever you think is going to be the best setup. Because you spend so much of the time stacked up, it's pretty obvious that Clea is going to be really well because of Pointed Courage, which synergizes really well with Elysian Might. To me, probably the most interesting choice that Liquid made was that Lip was Naya, which he seems to really enjoy doing. None of the other warriors in Liquid are doing this, and even though he only has 2 set, Atrocity also only had 2 set, but they were running Dreamweaver, so I don't think that that has any bearing on it. My best guess is that he simply doesn't like having to be tied down to his physical location by Dreamweaver, or he's actually just trying to buff the other melee with Bonded Hearts. Now, Echo definitely had a plan for what they wanted their warriors to do on this fight. They ran 4 warriors, all of them were Fury, and all of them were Necrolord, running the Glory legendary. All 4 of these warriors were soulbound with Plague Divisor. I wasn't able to identify any fight-specific reasons for why they would do this, other than the simple fact that having 4 Fury warriors running the Glory legendary means that they're going to have just an insane amount of mastery for a long period of time. On XY'MOX, Liquid and Echo made basically the exact same decision when it came to their warriors. For both guilds, all of them were Fury, all of them were Kyrian soulbound with Mykonikos, and all of them were using the Elysian Might legendary. The only difference here is that Liquid ran 3 Fury warriors and Echo ran 4. The reasoning for making this choice seems pretty obvious to me, which is that they wanted really good and strong AoE DPS, but they also needed good boss damage. And so, rather than running something like Signet of Tormented Kings, which just goes all in on that AoE DPS, they chose to run Elysian Might, which does a little bit less AoE DPS, but a lot more single target DPS. On Dysogny, both Liquid and Echo ran 3 warriors, and all 3 of them for each guild were arms. However, there was probably one of the most interesting choices that I am still very confused about, made by Echo, but let's talk about Liquid first, as I have been so far. All of Liquid's warriors were Khura'in, running Enduring Blow, just like they always do, but the fact is, Khura'in is a really good choice on this fight, because you're going to have those adds that spawn every 30 seconds, and they need to be cleaved down. This gives you a lot of uptime on first strike, and so it's just a really strong and pretty obvious pick. Now, Echo, on the other hand, they made a not obvious pick. They were all Venthyr, and they all soulbound with Nadja. I know, that's pretty weird. That's a soulbind that Arms hasn't seen since early Castle Nathria. So let's talk about maybe why they were doing this. The first idea that I had was that maybe Thrillseeker and Fatal Flaw have some nice lineup with the shields that Dysogny does, but from my understanding of the timings of this fight, it wouldn't be a good lineup for all of them, so I'm not entirely sure on this choice. The other idea that I came up with is simply that they were expecting it to be really rough towards the end of the fight, and they just wanted maximum execute damage, and well, Venthyr Arms is going to have probably the most ridiculous of any of the combinations of Spec and Soulbind for warriors. Or maybe they thought they could get a lot of Condemns cleaved onto the boss whenever the ads come out. For Prototype Pantheon, we saw another split in the choices that each guild decided to do with their warriors. Liquid ran 3 Arms warriors, all of them were running Enduring Blow, and all of them were Night Fae soulbound with Dreamweaver. Echo, on the other hand, ran 3 Fury warriors, all of them were Kyrian, soulbound with Mykonikos, 2 of them were running Elysian Might, and 1 of them was running Signet of Tormented Kings. So the thing here is that running Fury is definitely going to be better in Phase 3, but you're getting that gain at the cost of value provided in Phases 1 and 2. Signet of Tormented Kings is definitely going to provide the most value in Phase 3 with Merciless Bone Grinder, but it really suffers in Phases 1 and 2. Elysian Might smooths that out a bit, whereas it's not going to be quite as good as Signet in Phase 3, but it is still quite good in Phases 1 and 2. Arms is simply good in all of the phases, it's just not going to be as strong as Fury is in the last phase. And that's simply because Sweeping Strikes only hits one extra target. And so the Liquid Warriors just said, let's be pretty good all of the time, whereas the Echo Warriors said, let's just focus on doing as much damage as we possibly can in that last phase when it's super hectic. Up until Lihuvim, both guilds had been running at least 3 warriors for every single boss. But for Lihuvim, they both ran 2 warriors apiece. For each guild, they ran 2 Fury Warriors each, and for both guilds, both of their Fury Warriors were running Elysian Might. The difference here is that Liquid was running Clea as their Soulbind, and Echo was running Mika Nikos as their Soulbind. The primary difference between this choice is that Clea is going to be doing more single target DPS, whereas Mika Nikos is going to be doing more AoE DPS. Because of this, Clea is going to be a little bit better with the burst windows on the ads before they spawn, and Mika Nikos is going to be better on the ads once they have spawned, especially on ad sets that have the degens. Now, here's where things get a little bit more murky, because at the time of recording this, only Liquid has killed Halondrus, though Echo has gotten very close. For Liquid's kill, they only ran 1 warrior, and that was a Fury Warrior, and they were running the Deathmaker legendary, and they were also Night Phase Soulbound with Dreamweaver. The logic of this build seems twofold. First, they wanted to have very predictable 90-second burst windows. This is because they were running Reckless Abandon, which makes Recklessness have its default cooldown of 90 seconds, and they were also not running Destructive Reverberations, which meant that Ancient Aftershock was also on a 90-second cooldown, meaning that they would always get the 10% haste buff from Field of Blossoms with their Recklessness every single time. These timings seemed to work out really well for Lighty so that he was able to maximize the uptime with his Field of Blossoms. The other reason why I think that they picked Dreamweaver here specifically was the simple fact that it has Pod Tender. And Pod Tender is just really, really good on Halondrus because if you die, you're pretty much guaranteeing that a wipe is going to come from that. So if you can get a free mulligan every so often, that's just very valuable for progression. Now, currently, Echo is also only running 1 warrior, and they are Fury. The difference here is that they are Naya instead of Dreamweaver. They are also running the Deathmaker legendary, and so really the only difference here is that they're Naya instead of Dreamweaver. Going Naya instead of Dreamweaver does 2 primary things for you. First, you don't have Field of Blossom, so you're not going to be limited on where you can stay, and so you're not going to lose out if you have to move. Second, Bonded Hearts is going to provide some extra healing to your party, which this is a very healing intensive fight, especially at the end, so there is some value to be had based off of that. Now lastly, Liquid is working on Anduin, and currently they are running 2 Arms Warriors who are both Night Fae and Soulbound with Karain. Yes, like every other time we've seen Arms Warriors, they are running Enduring Blow, but the main thing here is that they're Karain, and that's because there's just lots of ads on this fight, and there's also lots of opportunities for 2-target cleaves, aka Sweeping Strikes. If they end up deciding that they need more AoE DPS, it's entirely possible that you might see them switch to Fury, but who knows? They're still pretty early on in progression, so we're just gonna have to wait and see. Now, once this race is over, I'm going to be updating this video and providing the rest of the bosses that are yet to be progressed on, because I think looking at what they did gives us an insight into how they thought about what to do and what is important for each fight. And ultimately, this can help you make decisions about what you want to do for your guild when you are progressing on these fights. So, as always, tell me why my opinions are dumb, give me your prediction for how many warriors you think we're going to see on the Jailer, or just correct me on the real reasons why we saw certain builds being run on certain fights. Lastly, I just want to say thank you for watching this video, and subscribe for more.